Well, behind me is one of the finest examples of a broadleaf lime you'll see anywhere in Europe.
We're in a house that's got an atmosphere and a style all of its own. It's a piece of architecture from a very different point in time.
It's 24 foot 8 inches in girth, which makes it by far the largest broadleaf lime in Britain.
As I look around the house now, what a stylish interior. It's actually the very height of fashion and style of the 1760s. Very difficult house to build, requiring very special techniques. Not the usual foundations.
The tree, as far as we know, is over 400 years in age, and that makes it the oldest broadleaf lime in Britain.
It's astonishing, actually, to be in a house where there simply isn't any wiring, and you might just see a bit of candle wax. And that's the only form of artificial illumination here. It is just as the 18th century left it. There's no heating, and I don't suppose it ever needed any heating. It might have been a nid d'amour, a little love nest or something like that.
Below me in this great chasm, which was originally the centre of the tree, is new growth.
I'm looking down at the floor, and what I'm seeing are country house quality floorboards. There's a high quality interior with the most beautiful attributes.
It's a real character tree, and of course, as well as all that, it has this remarkable tree house within it.
There has been a house on the site of Pitchford Hall since the 11th century, and both tree and treehouse were noted by cartographers on this map of 1692.
Now, in order for the house to be built in a tree in 1692, it must have been about 100 years old and fairly mature to accommodate a tree house. So that gives some indication of the age of 400 years plus. It's a very prominent position on the estate, on the top of a hill, clearly visible from the house. Really, it was a status symbol, and before the days of the later Cedars of Lebanon and Wellingtonias, and then eventually the BMW on the drive, it will have been, look at my lime tree.
Well, I was fortunate enough to inherit the tree, the house and the tree and the hall in 1972, very unexpectedly, and suddenly found myself the proud owner of all these lovely things. It struck us almost immediately that the priority was to preserve and nurture the tree and the tree house. First of all, we had to look at it from the point of view of a tree surgeon, because obviously without the tree, not going to have the tree house any longer. Then it was looked at from an engineering point of view, and then it had to be looked at from an architectural point of view, and then it was really restored.
Prior to the Colthursts and its current Arabian owners, Pitchford Hall and its treehouse have had a long history of eccentric owners. None more so than Lady Sybil Grant, who resided at Pitchford in the early part of the 20th century. Reputedly, Lady Sybil had a fear of running water, and as a result she vacated the luxury of Pitchford Hall to take up residence near her beloved treehouse.
She was enormously fat, had bright red hennaed hair, wasn't very nice to her husband. They did occasionally communicate with semaphore. So she'd be up in the tree, waving her 2 flags, and he'd be the other end, sort of returning it. Lady Sybil, on fine days, she would take tea in the tree house. And the poor butler used to stagger across the lawn and up the bank. The silver salvers bearing sandwiches and goodies to eat and drink, while she sat perched on top of the tree in the house. How she managed to waddle up, I have no idea.
The tradition of taking tea in the treehouse was back well before Lady Sybil Grant. When the young Princess Victoria visited Pitchford prior to her coronation, a diary of 1823 records a visit to a little house in a tree in order to take tea.
The tree has obviously had to live with man's intervention to it, not just because it's had the tree house there. And I suppose in a sense there comes a point in time where the tree house defines the tree in this particular case, and the fact there's a tree house there then means extraordinary efforts are made to prop up the tree.
Today, the exterior of the treehouse mimics the Tudor style of Pitchford Hall perfectly. But confusingly, illustrations from the turn of the century show the house clad with plaster.
So the house is meant to be something of the appearance of masonry. It's not meant to be a black and white house. It's got charm, it has an iconic power, people don't forget it. But it's a serious work of architecture as well, because there's no mucking about when it comes to the interior and the purposefulness of the design. It's a very complete design. It's a permanent object in a rather impermanent setting. They just kept it the right size, the right scale, the right amount of detail, just the right intensity of quality for it to be a perfect little artifice. It's a marriage of artifice and nature.
When you have a look at it, you've got to say that it's sort of got a motherly nature because it's embracing the treehouse, curling its arms round it.
The tree and the tree house, to me, just like an old Derby couple, a husband and wife.
It looks okay. It looks okay for the time being. Our generation will take pleasure from it, but it's a challenge for the future.
Tonight, we're live at the Mercury Music Prize. Find out who's won Album of the Year at 9 o'clock here on BBC4. That's after tonight's prom. Next.